What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a great Friday so far. Bitcoin up as we speak, has broken above some very important resistance, namely the one at 95K. We're going to be taking a look into Bitcoin, how this could affect the altcoins, and of course talking about Ethereum's possible surge and the bullish chart that is showing on TradingView. Okay, we're going to be taking a look into Ethereum. We're going to be taking a look into some top 100 altcoin setups, finding some pretty big setups here because that's what I do on this channel. If you guys are new here, you guys should know that I dive deep into the charts every day, finding the moves before they actually happen, because let's face it, that's a lot less riskier than chasing a pumping green candle. If you guys ever chased a pumping green candle, let me know how that worked out, because from my personal experiences, not so well. I'd rather take a lot less riskier setups, right? Now, if you guys do have any technical analysis requests for any market, any coin, just drop your comments in this comment section below. Let me know what you guys want to see, what coin you guys want to see in terms of being on the charts, my take on it. Drop it in the comment section below. I will choose a technical analysis request every day and do it here on my video live. Okay? And make sure you guys are liked and subscribe to this channel, because I will bring you guys daily ideas on what I think about the crypto charts. Now let's take a look into Bitcoin here. Okay, Bitcoin here right now. On the hourly time frame, we have broken out of this rounded bottom pattern here. So rounded bottoms are usually bullish, usually breaks to the upside. Just to illustrate here, we also had a bigger rounded bottom here, right? As you guys can see. And this is a smaller rounded bottom, still broke to the upside. Now, let's take a look into daily time frame, because that is my focus here, right? Because on the daily time frame, it looks like a very bullish chart here, and let me show you guys why. So aside from, we are very well above the daily 200 SMA, and the daily 21 SMA is crossing over. Okay, so that's a very good sign, right? Which is the orange line, that's the daily 200 SMA, and the blue line is the daily 221 SMA. Okay, and what I'm saying here is on the RSI as well, not only did we break above that 96,000 resistance, right, that we have been stuck under for the past couple of days, but we also had a confirmation on the RSI here, in my opinion. I talked about this yesterday. Look for weakness in the RSI for reversals. However, on this RSI reading here, on this daily time frame, there is no weakness right now. Okay, because we have a higher high comparing to this high, and we got a confirmation that this is a higher high on the RSI. So this is not divergence, right? So this is what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. Very important. 3-day time frame. Been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. Double bottom here. Very simple, very clean and effective pattern, okay, that you guys would probably see throughout quite a bit of these markets. Okay, if you guys just train your eyes to actually look for these patterns, very simple but very effective. Double bottom usually breaks back to the upside. In this case, we did, and this is on the 3-day time frame. So this is a pretty big time frame. It's a bigger time frame, right? And you couple that with divergence, right? We had one bottom, second bottom, and then on the RSI, we have one bottom and then a higher bottom that is usually indicative of a reversal. Okay, even if you don't have a double bottom, but this time we have both what's showing on the price action chart and the RSI. So that gave me more confidence that this was going to break out, and it did. Right, this happened a couple of weeks ago. Okay, but this is still very important because it has not reached that price target of 104,000. Okay, that is the price target out of this double bottom pattern. And once we get to 104,000, that is a price target. It's only an estimate. It could be more or less, but it's still very important to get a good idea of where the price action could be going. But the real resistance I'm really looking at is going to be about 110,000, which is basically the previous all-time high, right? Because we don't make new all-time highs until we actually break out of this resistance, okay? And I think that's when things will start to look very good for the rest of the markets, okay? But we've already seen some pretty good pumps out of the markets, out of the smaller altcoins for the past couple of days. But the real resistance for Bitcoin is, out of this 110,000, and I would expect a lot more significant moves to be happening throughout the markets if Bitcoin is able to break out of this previous all-time high resistance. Now, we do have some resistance coming up here, right? As you guys can see, it's going to be at about 100K, right? If you guys take a look into the 3-day time frame here, just put your dotted line on the 100K mark. You guys can see that there's been quite a bit of support and resistance, quite a bit of struggle here for the price action. So it does need to go back and reclaim that level, right? But as of right now, 100K is going to be pretty solid resistance. This is not my opinion, right? Just look at it. On this side right here, quite a bit of support and resistance that is happening here. Okay, now let's take a look into Ethereum and see why this potentially there's a very high likelihood that this is going to be pumping, right? So I have some Ethereum. I trade Ethereum on leverage, right? Because especially when Bitcoin is consolidating, like starting back in April 2024 until November 2024. I mean, that's a huge consolidation period. And of course, January to right now, I mean, that was a huge downtrend. In those times, I personally like trading leverage on bigger altcoins because with the smaller altcoins, they could go down pretty quickly. And especially when I am low on margin, I don't want to take the risk of getting liquidated, right? So I trade the bigger altcoins like Ethereum. They're less risky. They're not as risky to go down to. They're not as likely to go down 70%, 80% like some of these smaller altcoins. But if I still want to actually make a trade, scalping. Now I have some Ethereum, and I am bullish on the entire crypto markets until I start seeing some bearish signs, especially on the monthly time frame. But right now, things are still looking very bullish to me. Ethereum broke out of this falling wedge pattern that has formed since January. Price target is about 2,900. Okay, just broke above the daily 50 SMA, which is the gray line here. Now, the daily 200 SMA is quite far away, so this is lagging behind quite a bit behind Bitcoin and Total 3 because of where the price action is at relative to the daily 200 SMA. Now, could it actually get a pretty big pump to catch up to the daily 200 SMA? I would not count that out. I like to speak in terms of probabilities, right? Not absolutes. So I would not rule out that probability that it could get a pretty significant pump. But that is just my opinion, not financial advice, right? But we do have a price target here that's, for the breakout of this pattern, it's going to be about 2,900, okay? Now, that is what I'm looking at for Ethereum. Of course, everything here relies on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin starts dumping, then I don't think any of these altcoin setups really matter. Let's come to Total 3, which is altcoin markets, excluding Ethereum, okay? And this is what I mean. We have a very similar chart here, falling wedge on the daily time frame that has formed since end of January. Broke out of this pattern not too long ago. We've talked about this breakout, okay? So if you guys are subscribed, you guys would know that I have actually been talking about this breakout. And, we have broken out of this pattern. Daily 200 is about $860 billion market cap. That's not too far away from the price action right now, so that's what I'm talking about. this is actually ahead of Ethereum in terms of relative to its moving averages. Now, price target out of this pattern is going to be just a little bit shy of $1.1 trillion, which could still do some pretty significant pumps for some of these smaller altcoins. We've seen it for the past couple of days on Coinbase, on I'm sure on quite a bit of these exchanges. Okay. Now let's take a look into some top 100 altcoin setups by market cap. But before that, let me also run over the stock market, because the stock market has a very high correlation with Bitcoin, with which affects the rest of the crypto markets. So it's still very important to take a look into the stock markets. It is closing for the weekend, but it will be opened Sunday afternoon, Pacific Standard Time. And I'm talking about S&P 500 ES1 exclamation mark. Okay. Talked about this pattern. Okay. Just a huge V-shaped pattern here, since it has actually came down to about 4,800. Formed this huge comeback, right? This daily candle. Consolidated for a couple of days. Falling wedge pattern. It's going to be a very common theme you guys will see if you guys have TradingView charts. And if you guys don't have TradingView charts, I don't know what you guys are doing trying to trade this market. You got to have TradingView, okay? You got to learn the candlesticks. You got to just get experience in reading the patterns. That's how you survive in this trading market, okay? Now, falling wedge pattern out of this S&P 500 mini futures. We do have a price target of about 5,800. Daily 200 SMA still at about 5,800 about. Okay, so Bitcoin is actually leading in recovery relative to the S&P 500 index. Okay, so I don't see anything that could potentially currently that is a warning sign for the crypto markets. Okay, it still looks pretty bullish to me. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so it is at some resistance, 3-day 21. Weekly 50 SMA is coming up. Weekly 21 SMA is coming up. So some resistance coming up, but as of right now, at this moment, I don't really see any warning signs just yet. Okay, we might hit some resistance, and then we're gonna be updating the charts and see if we need to update our opinions at that time. But right now, it's still looking all right to me. Let's take a look into some top 100 crypto setups. Okay, so I'm gonna be taking a look. I'm gonna be walking you guys through how I look at these charts from scratch most of the time, and see if we can actually spot any setups before they actually move. Because I like spotting setups before they actually move. It's less riskier that way. It's not 100% foolproof, right? That it's gonna be a winning trade, but it definitely, when you get a good entry point, that will give you a huge lead, right? In actually having a probability of making a profit. But how you manage the trade afterwards is, that is the other 50% of the trade, in my opinion, right? Because where you take profits, where you cut your losses, how long you're gonna, what's the time horizon you're gonna hold the position for, those are all very important factors after the fact that you enter into a market. But nevertheless, getting a good entry point will still give you a huge lead, right? Now let's take a look into some top 100 altcoins. I'm just gonna throw a dart here, okay? Let's take a look into OP, Optimism, right? Haven't looked at this chart for quite some time. Let's take a look into the monthly time frame. That's very important to me, because if you actually take a look into altcoins with monthly RSIs back in 2020, 2021, look for altcoins with monthly RSI readings back then. Okay, tell me, how long does the monthly RSI stay above 70 before these altcoins dump? Just go take a look, right? So that's why I'm going to take a look into the monthly RSI here. It's currently not in, it's not in overbought territory, that's for sure. So it is not at a high risk. Okay, it is looking good on the monthly RSI, right? Weekly time frame. This looks like a huge falling wedge pattern to me. What you want to do when you want to draw a pattern is that you want to make sure that you have 3 candles touching on a trend line in order to validate that trend line. Okay, so we do have a validated falling wedge pattern. OP USDT has not, it's very close to the bottom of that pattern. And then how you measure a price target is you basically get a measurement of the opening of the pattern, and then you just estimate it by putting it on top of a potential breakout point. Since it has not broken out yet, I'm going to put it right here just as an estimate. That will give me a price target of just right above $5 here. Okay. Now, if it breaks out later, then, we're going to update it by putting it somewhere along this upper trend line. Of course, if it actually breaks down, then we're going to update the charts here and possibly our opinion. But right now, falling wedge patterns usually break to the upside, okay? Like this one, right? Now let's take a look into also let me point out what's also important here, because when you use the RSI reading, that gives you a reversal reading as well inside a falling wedge that would increase the likelihood of a reversal. So right now on this weekly time frame, as you guys can see, right, it did make a pretty good bounce here for the past couple of weeks for optimism, right? And then what I mean is, if you guys actually see this bounce on the RSI, if the price action was to actually make a higher, a lower or equal low here on this RSI, I would say it's pretty unlikely for the bears to actually beat this reading based on the shape of this RSI reading here, okay? So if the bears were actually to push this price action down to an equal or lower low, chances are it's going to get another bounce from a very likely bullish divergence scenario on this weekly time frame RSI. Now, that's just my opinion, right? Not financial advice. That is basically what I'm looking at for optimism. Let's take a look at another one, Radium. What could be happening with Radium? Okay, monthly time frame. Not in overbought territory on the RSI, so it is not in high risk territory. What it's looking like here, it's a very clear rounded bottom pattern on the monthly time frame, so it's looking bullish on this monthly time frame. I personally like entering on higher lows because that's less risky than a higher high. So, for example, a higher low would have been at about $1.70 according to this monthly time frame, and that's on this monthly time frame. But if you guys trade on smaller time frames, right? A very similar idea would apply. Let's take a look into the weekly time frame, see if we can find anything. I don't think I can find anything here, so probably in the 3-day time frame. There was probably a falling wedge pattern here, right? Very similar theme, like I've been telling you guys. And it breaks to the upside, right? Price target. Now the time is running out here, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. Price target, you fill in the blank, okay? Now this wraps up my video for today. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you